Brought to you by PrayLatin.com, makers of prayer cards featuring complete English phonetic renderings of Latin pronunciations.
From time to time on this channel, we like to take a look at Catholic prophecy, either the messages of mystics or learned scholars who take a look at ancient prophecies, including prophecies in Scripture, or from individual mystics from the last several centuries who all seem to have a running theme when you put them together, whether they're messages from Our Lady at approved and semi-approved apparitions of the Virgin Mary, or any of these other mystics. That message is pretty simple. There was a time coming in the church when there would be a deep, deep, deep crisis that would be part of a larger crisis going on in the modern world. Well, in the contemporary world, because as it turns out, it's pretty obvious that what they were warning about centuries in advance was probably our time. And when you see the direction these things are going, it's not exactly confidence-inspiring on how things are going to play out, if you like things like peace and stability, because everything in the corruption that we now see in the church and manifesting in the world leads essentially to some sort of material chastisement that allows God to wipe the slate mostly clean again, allowing his church to be liberated and to flourish once again, free from the shackles of the modern secular system, and as well as from schismatic groups, non-Catholic schismatic groups that are helping to lead the charge in this, as well as to pseudo-Catholic groups within the church who have undermined all sorts of doctrines and morals and theology of the church. And so what I have for you today is a presentation of segments, excerpts from various Marian apparitions, from a handful of them, that point, when you put them together, point to one of the facets of this crisis being the priesthood itself being corrupted. Now, by corrupted, I mean steeped in sin. And if you are a basic Catholic, you understand, at the most basic level, that through penance, through confession and reparation, being steeped in sin can be remedied. It can be wiped away. Grace can be restored. This is not to say the church has defected. Do not ever think the church has defected. It has not. We are just in a profound crisis, and one aspect of that is that there are men who should not be in the priesthood, and there are men who should not be bishops, among the bishops. And some would say, for the last half century or so, men who probably shouldn't have been popes have been popes. That's probably the hardest pill for many to swallow, but such is the nature of the crisis in the church. But here we have the messages of several approved apparitions that will point to you, when you put these segments together, a pretty clear picture. According to Our Lady of Good Success, some let themselves be dazzled by the false glamour of honors and human greatness, while others are blinded by self-love, not realizing that they are falling into lukewarmness, that immense evil which in religious houses destroys their fervor, humility, self-renunciation, and the ceaseless practice of religious virtues and fraternal charity, and that childlike simplicity which makes souls so dear to my divine Son, and to me, their mother. See and contemplate the grandeur of this restoring and life-giving sacrament of penance, so forgotten and even scorned by ungrateful men, who in their foolish madness do not realize that it is the only sure means of salvation after one has lost his baptismal innocence. What is most grievous is that even the ministers of my most holy Son do not give it the value that they should, viewing with cold indifference this valuable and precious treasure, which has been placed in their hands for the restoration of souls redeemed by the blood of the Redeemer. There are those who consider hearing confession as a loss of time and as a futile thing. Oh, alas, if priests were given to see directly that which you are now contemplating and were enlightened with the light that now illuminates you. They would then recognize this gift. The Queen of Heaven told Mother Mariana that this battle would reach its most acute stage because of various unfaithful religious, who, quote, under the appearance of virtue and bad-spirited zeal, would turn upon religion, who nourished them at her breast. During this time, Our Lady continues, inasmuch as this poor country, Ecuador, will lack the Christian spirit, the sacrament of extreme unction will be little esteemed. Many people will expire without receiving it, either because of the negligence of their families or their false sentimentality that tries to protect the sick from seeing the gravity of their situations, or because they will rebel against the spirit of the Catholic Church, impelled by the malice of the devil. Thus, many souls will be deprived of innumerable graces, consolations, and the strength they need to make that great leap from time to eternity. The sacred sacrament of holy orders will be ridiculed, oppressed, and despised. The demon will try to persecute the ministers of the Lord in every possible way, and he will labor with cruel and subtle acuteness to deviate them from the spirit of their vocation, corrupting many of them. These corrupted priests who will scandalize the Christian people will incite the hatred of the bad Christians and the enemies of the Roman Catholic and Apostolic Church to fall upon all priests. This apparent triumph of Satan will bring enormous sufferings to the good pastors of the Church. Moreover, in these unhappy times, there will be unbridled luxury, which, acting thus to snare the rest into sin, will conquer innumerable frivolous souls who will be lost. Innocence will almost no longer be found in children, nor modesty in women. In this supreme moment of need of the Church, those who should speak will fall silent. According to Our Lady of La Salette, quote, "Melanie, what I am going to tell you now will not always be a secret. You can publish it in 1858. Priests, my son's ministers, priests, by their evil life, by their irreverences and their impiety in celebrating the holy mysteries, love of money, love of honor and pleasures, priests have become sewers of impurity. Yes, priests call forth vengeance, and vengeance is suspended over their heads. Woe to priests and to persons consecrated to God, who by their infidelities and their evil life are crucifying my son anew. The sins of persons consecrated to God cry to heaven and call for vengeance. And now here is the vengeance at their very doors, for no longer is anyone found to beg mercy and pardon for the people. There are no more generous souls. There is now no one worthy of offering the spotless victim to the Eternal on the world's behalf. Bad books will abound over the earth, and the spirits of darkness will everywhere spread universal relaxation in everything concerning God's service. They will have very great power over nature. There will be churches to serve these spirits. People will be transported from one place to another by these evil spirits, and even priests, because they will not have lived by the good spirit of the gospel, which is a spirit of humility, charity, and zeal for the glory of God. The dead and the just will be made to rise." According to Our Lady of Akita, "The work of the devil will infiltrate even into the church in such a way that one will see cardinals opposing cardinals, bishops against bishops. The priests who venerate me will be scorned and opposed by their confreres. Churches and altars sacked. The church will be full of those who accept compromises, and the demon will press many priests and consecrated souls to leave the service of the Lord. The demon will be especially implacable against souls consecrated to God. The thought of the loss of so many souls is the cause of my sadness. If sins increase in number and gravity, there will be no longer pardon for them." And then we go to the most unusual of all these apparitions that bear a warning. Our Lady of Knock, who doesn't have a message per se. Her message is in her silence. This is an excerpt from an article on this from Tradition in Action. This is their interpretation and is one that I agree with. Quoting their article. "Now, since every recent apparition of Our Lady contained a secret, one is induced to ask whether or not there should be a secret at Knock. Perhaps it should even be expected. So I ask, shouldn't this deliberate silence willed by Our Lady at Knock be seen as some form of secret? A secret that harmonizes with the secrets of La Salette, Lourdes, and Fatima. Isn't it reasonable to affirm this? Shouldn't one ask if the silence acted as a sort of veil or shroud, concealing a profound message? I believe this is the deep-seated purpose of the silence, and suggest to speculate upon what that secret would be, using the evidence that we have at hand. One closing note. I do not agree with those who say that the silence itself is the message. The message of Our Lady of Knock is not to promote silence. Those who try to present this silence as the main message that Our Lady wished to convey are promoting a passivity that pressures the faithful to remain inactive and just pray in the face of the grave crises in the church and society we face today. To keep silent before the onslaughts of an evil world and a corrupt hierarchy is to suppress a Catholic militant spirit. As will be shown in future articles, I believe that the message of Knock is the opposite of a lifestyle of quote-unquote peace, where, quote, all my cares and troubles cease. A phrase from the chorus of the popular Lady of Knock song that has effectively become the modern-day theme song of Our Lady of Knock. End quote. Like I said at the start of this, that pretty clear picture it's painting was a period of time where the priests of the church and the bishops would be more concerned about wealth, power, worldly acclaim, Think back on the things that have been talked about in the media, in Catholic media, and dominating the secular media. This connection of my government with various nonprofit organizations. Catholic media focusing on the aspect of that where the nonprofits in question were Catholic ones, taking the dirty money of Caesar and using it for all sorts of nefarious purposes. That's just one part of this. That's what actually inspired this today. You have priests who no longer preach the gospel, who preach development, who preach ecumenism, who preach inclusion, who preach everything but the salvation of souls and the saving grace that only comes through Jesus Christ and the church he established on earth. The true message of the gospel has been lost to all too many of these prelates. I'm curious what you thought about this. What do you think of the message of Our Lady of Knock? In that there was no message. That it was not an endorsement of silence, as so many people have misinterpreted, but rather an indictment of the silence of the bishops and the silence of the priests in the face of a growing, sort of festering sin in the world. Let me know what you think of this in the comments, please. And if you've ever thought about supporting the work of Return to Tradition, it does help keep these daily messages coming. Links in the description box below. Patreon, Subscribe Star, what used to be a join button, now it's on that subscription button. There's a little plus. If you click on that, it gives you options for that. Whatever it is, it does help keep these daily messages coming. They have all those options asked for by viewers like you. But let me know what you thought about this in the comments, please. So like and subscribe if you haven't. It certainly helps. So does sharing this on social media. That helps enormously too. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.